And that's the truth. We're talking about the 0.1% that are now rock stars.
Yeah.
But I just sniff it as the early indications of like a great generation. You know?
Oh yeah.
You know, the generation that went to war, the greatest generation.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, I don't think they're talking about the millennials as a great generation.
Oddly enough, almost the same timeline and circumstances, though, right? So the generation that went to war, those guys lived through the Depression, right? So you had the Spanish flu, you had the Depression,
right?
And then that generation went to war. That's the greatest generation. So, I mean, the parameters from a historical standpoint are not that different, right? Great stress, watch the families struggle. You know, what are we going to do to create this next great thing so that my kids, right? Because that's the driver, right?
Yeah.
You and I were talking about it yesterday. So my wife doesn't have to worry.
Yeah.
Right? Because my wife runs the household.
Cheers. Cheers to our wives.
I mean, she will tell everybody that I'm the one. You know what I mean? But like, oh yeah, let's not knock down. All the superstitions. Let's get out of the way. If she doesn't have to worry, then the kids are being treated right. I love my kids. I'm like, I used to joke all the time, man, I would be a stay-at-home dad. I'm not built for it. I could not be a stay-at-home dad. I couldn't get a sugar
My
mom.
wife,
It wouldn't be me. I couldn't do it.
Tore her calf muscle about a week ago. So she's been on crutches. Other than that, you'd never know that she's not still. It's really painful to watch her do laundry with a torn calf muscle. I'm sure. But all kidding aside, I pitched in, and the last week at the end of school, and there's been a lot of things with the kids, so I've been there more so than work. And I got in bed last night, and I'm like, I'm wife tired right now.
Whoa. Did you have a headache?
I did.
It's real. The headache is real.
Don't you come near me.
You heard it here first. The headache is real. Oh, my goodness. All right. I wouldn't know. I've never had to pitch it.
You had to go on the other side to find out.
But I have had to pitch it. And it is. It's exhausting.
It is.
You know? So it's, you know what I mean? My driver is to have a happy household. Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like, so whatever the vehicle is, and you're right, whether it was moving or candy making or whatever, you know, plug it in. Because of how competitive I am internally, I would find the way to achieve at a level at what I would believe to be the highest level, right?
Yeah,
now, I might be delusional as what the highest level is, but like that's where I always want to achieve. That's where I push myself to. And then the odd side about it for me is on the backside, when it starts to click, it's almost uncomfortable. So I'm almost uncomfortable in success. When it goes, and it's not like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop type things. It's just like, I don't know what I did to deserve this, and I have great people around me, right?
Right.
At this table, right? I don't know. I never went to college, Dan. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, fancy words and stuff. But
it only took me 7 years.
Because I don't see the hard work, right? So like what everybody else sees as hard work that I do, like it's what needs to be done. So it doesn't.
Well, the hard work is preloaded.
Right.
At this point, it's maintenance mode of all the things all the hard work you've done.
Right.
Tweaking.
Because 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been here.
No.
So God. It's a lot of work to get
there. Here's not a bad place.
Cheers on the pod. You know, I talk about that too with some of my friends. One of the hardest things is to try and shut that down when you are with family or friends. That way,
it's 24/7. It's our phones.
And I always fear that. Oh, here comes Dan. I wonder what he's going to talk about in his business. But for me, it's so exciting because I've staked everything in my life on this piece. Mm-hmm. So when a huge success happens or a huge failure, like I have to talk about it.
Right.
It's like my outlet now. So I don't know. I think owning a business that way is going to bring out who those real friends are too, the really close ones. Because they're there for you in those ups and downs,
right?
But yeah, it's been a ride that way. It really has.
Yeah. Like we said before, I think we get nowhere without the people around us.
Yeah,
like we have the vision and we have the ideas, but really, not the bandwidth to ever create anything close to what we've done.
Yeah.
Without really good people that somehow buy into what we want to do and align with us, and then it's their dream as well.
Yeah.
That's
And
huge.
as long as you're not greedy
So
and an asshole, people will follow you. And
Can you
people will work
be
next to you.
one and not the other, or
Well, is that secret sauce behind company culture? The nice, fun buzzword for every little startup now. Is that it?
I think so. I think it's that you've got to genuinely want these people to share in what you have, not just use them for what they offer as a tool,
Yeah.
and then benefit from it, and then just throw that away and put another tool in there.
Yeah.
I think you never can get, your company will never get any kind of, history. It's because we're all looking for it.
True.
We want legacy
True.
history.
True.
Money's great, but we want this to live long after us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
In some
remember
form. Yeah.
the
Some
first.
form.
Well, the first fear was family reunions. Like, if I knew it was going to fail, it's like, damn, I brought me and my brothers down with me. I'm never going to hear the end of it. It's like, but that advanced now to, again, having those dreams, putting the right people around you, but they know what I'm in it for.
Right.
And that big picture piece. And I couldn't do it without
And
them.
people will gravitate to you that have the same goal.
Yeah.
And it's how you receive them and how you treat them.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to use it as a stepping stone and move on, or if they're going to jump on board and say, you know what, I'm going with Dan to the top because I want to be the Wozniak.
Both are okay, though, I think, right?
They're great. They are. It's when they leave, how they leave, that determines how good of an owner, partner, whatever that you were.
Sure.
If you have people that leave and go on to better things, and you throw them a party,
Yeah.
that's the ideal scenario. The people that just don't show back up or bitch because they're just tired of your shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want to avoid at all costs.
Yeah. Oh man, the secret sauce.
Well,
I've been trying to put my finger.
We've had guys. I've got a guy. We haven't been around that long. I've already had
Picking things up and putting them down since 2020.
2020. It's not that long, man. But
Preferably 5 to 7 times a day.
preferably 5 to 7 times a day. We're getting there, baby. It's cracking. There's been a couple guys who've spun off and done their own thing in the same industry, and to be able to help them and support them and kind of bring them along has been pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
He partnered up with, one gentleman partnered up with 2 other guys. I'm like, hey, buddy, if you had stayed, you'd made more as a manager than you would have as a partner. But
Right.
to want that autonomy, right? And I was talking to him the other day. He needed a couple guys. We threw a couple guys to him for a day, and he's like, I'm like, what time do you want him there? He's like, 7:15. I learned that from you. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, man, he's like, I want him to start being there at 6:45 because I want him out at 7:15. I'm like, bro, you were the one that couldn't be there. Remember all those years?
What's
I
best
was
not
like,
to do?
I can't wait. Because I saw it in the kid. I knew that he wasn't with me for life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I knew that about him. I could see it. And I remember saying to him, like, on the lot, right? Because, like, it wasn't always a shop and an office. I started in a storage facility and a parking spot, And I can remember saying to him, man, one day you're going to call me and tell me about the guy that showed up at 7:45 and threw
Right.
your whole day into a tizzy. And I can't wait for that to happen. So, well, I guess a lot of it is also being able to have the vision to see who is what as well, right? And put them in the right places around you.
It's a double-edged sword because sometimes you want something for someone more than they want it.
Yeah.
And I've gone down that road many times, and you have to stop myself. And my wife's even said it too. You can't want their dream more than they want it, or want to work harder for it than they want to work harder for it. Because that's kind of how a lot of us have raised our kids that are older now with the helicopters and the snowplows, and we're not doing them any bar. We're not doing them any favors. The adversity is something they've got to find, and they've got to get that drive themselves. I try to, in the businesses that we have, everyone I am around that's incorporated with it, I perfect example. I picture what free trade would look like with you running it with me stepping back. All the time. So and you as well. I see leadership. I see is not just how are we going to grow this and make a lot of money. It's if I weren't here, how would this go? I think it'd be great, probably be better, but you definitely have better pie.
Thank you. This is incredible. I mean, what a
I got to take the pause every 5 minutes.
I know.
Eat some pie, you feel better.
Yeah, this is an incredible spread, man. Yeah, but it is. It's being able to step back and take
Right.
a look and you know, thank you. That's a huge compliment. And I, you know, I talk about, you know, I was away this weekend, you know, and again, we talked about this stuff, you know, my partners. I was down with my business partners down in Florida. And
Right.
like, we're not going to talk about business this weekend. I'm like, I've known you guys longer than we've been in business, but I got to be honest with you, there's not really much else to talk about, right? Because it is a vehicle to the next thing to go. It's financial freedom for my kids. It's financial freedom for their kids. It's people not needing to worry. It's putting my wife to be able to live a privileged life. I shared this story with Dan, man. I sat down with my wife, and I usually have a vision, right? Like, so I really have an idea of where things are headed. And some incredible things have been happening over the last year or so. Based on both you guys that are at this table in my life and the trajectory that it's on. And I was sitting across from my wife and I go, babe, I don't know what 5 years from now looks like.
Shouldn't.
And she's like, is that a good thing? And I'm like, this time I think it is, you know? It just seems like I took a position about a year and a half ago where I just started saying yes. Right?
Of her or in general?
In general, like to everything. I always said yes to her. But
Smart man.
to everything else. You know what I mean? This right here. I was talking to the guy who handles our digital marketing, and I said, oh man, back in December, a guy had this idea about doing a podcast called Guys Talking Pies. And he goes, you should do that. And I was like,
Yes.
all right, how? And he's like, I don't know, just take your phone and record it and we'll see what happens. And you know, so those little things have just been open to, again, putting the right people in the right positions and then listening to what they have to say as well, right? Like, I don't have to be the smartest person in the room.
And yeah, like we call that like especially with our business, you know, they're keeping the irons in the fire that way and you keep nurturing them. I do that, but with relationships now. And whether it be B2B or B2C, you know, it's the same piece. So what can you do to grow that? Because I know something's going to come from it. It's hard to put a number or a data point behind or anything like that. So you go back to that genuine.
I just feel if a 5-year plan is ridiculous. Because 5 years ago, if you had a plan, would have gone, everybody, if they would have stuck to it, they would have went down with the COVID shit.
Yeah.
Like, I think the plan is you need to pivot daily. You can't be a cruise ship, as my partner Don says. You can't be a cruise ship. You got to be a jet ski and be able to pivot on the move. You pivoted a few times. I've seen that wasn't part of your plan 5 years ago.
Yeah, and back.
And back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, so when there people talk about a 5-year plan, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Because there are core things that stay. Like, hey, you let ego get in the way, you're going to find yourself in a hole. That happened.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
turned it around.
It's a term that I really think has been relevant a lot lately. Cognitive dissonance, meaning you believe in something, and then you're given new facts that might poke some holes in that. Yet you keep believing in that.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is fat-free pie, and I'm going to eat it as I'm getting fatter. Still, yeah, it's probably still fat-free pie.
That nutrition.
Right. So given the new information, if you don't pivot, that's ego will stop you from doing that.
Yeah, and I've wanted to touch on that for a while because I think, you know, we have discussed this. You know, you go into Barnes & Noble, you go to the business book section, right? I don't want to call that an outdated way because it's so system driven. But those systems, I mean, what happens when you get punched in the face? Whether that punch in the face be payroll or an insurance claim you weren't expecting or a new product change in a material you were used to using, a vendor goes down. Like, how do you pivot? How do you adapt? And I think that's exactly where those relationships are there as your safety net to help catch you and get you through. Because you care about them, they care about you, and you say, hey, you know what? I am in a spot right now. I need the help. What would you suggest? And you're being open to listening too. I mean, that's a huge part behind it. But I think that's where the successful ones are going to come from now. I really do.
Again, it comes out of the same conversation that you were having, and it's.
You were warming me up yesterday.
I wasn't. I was Wednesday shit. This is Thursday shit.